cycling the Carretera Austral, episode 36, Queulat National Park. Today we've decided to give the bike a rest because we had reserved this day for a very special hike, a huge glacier hanging over the abyss.
You might have heard a lot about this place, but you can never imagine it would be so imposing.
First, you cross a river, the Queulat River, on a hanging footbridge that wobbles a little as you walk over it, like part of the ritual. The sound of the water is loud and crystal clear, and the forest around you looks like something out of a movie. Towering trees, moss everywhere, and a cold, humid air that reminds you you're deep in Patagonia.
Imagine standing face to face with a massive wall of ancient ice, suspended impossibly between mountain peaks.
That's what awaits at Chile's Queulat National Park, where a hanging glacier defies both gravity and imagination.
Well, that's absolutely fascinating. What makes this particular glacier so unique compared to others around the world?
Unlike typical glaciers that rest in valleys or mountaintops, this one is literally suspended in midair, creating what scientists call a glacial remnant formation. The really interesting part is how it generates this constant waterfall. We're talking about hundreds of gallons per minute cascading down into this stunning turquoise lagoon below.
That's incredible. How do visitors actually experience something like this?
Well, the journey itself is part of what makes it so special. You start by crossing this swaying footbridge over the Queulat River. It's about 100 meters long and definitely gets your heart racing. Then you're looking at a 3.2-kilometer hike through one of the most pristine temperate rainforests in South America.
That sounds pretty challenging. What kind of preparation would someone need?
The fascinating thing is that while it's rated as moderate difficulty, the real challenge isn't so much physical as it is mental preparation. You're dealing with what meteorologists call a hyperhumid climate zone. This area receives over 4,000 millimeters of rainfall annually, which is partly why the ecosystem is so incredibly diverse.
So I'm guessing timing is pretty crucial for visiting?
Oh, exactly. And here's where it gets interesting. Local guides recommend hitting the trail between 7 and 9 a.m., not just to avoid crowds, but because that's when the angle of the sun creates this phenomenon they call glacier glow. The ice actually appears to illuminate from within.
That's remarkable. What about the cultural significance of this place?
Well, the name itself tells us so much. Queulat comes from the Tehuelche people, who inhabited this region for thousands of years. Linguistic experts say it translates to the sound of waterfalls, but it's actually more complex than that. It's meant to capture the entire sensory experience of the place.
You know, that reminds me of how indigenous languages often have these incredibly precise ways of describing natural phenomena. What's the scientific perspective on how this glacier formed?
Geologists estimate this formation began during the last ice age, roughly 100,000 years ago. What's particularly concerning is that climate scientists have documented a 15% reduction in the glacier's mass just in the last decade. The sound of melting ice that visitors hear, it's actually becoming more pronounced year after year.
That's quite sobering to think about. What impact is this having on the local ecosystem?
Environmental researchers have identified this area as what they call a sentinel site, basically an early warning system for climate change impacts. The unique thing is how the glacier affects everything below it, from the specialized alpine plants that only grow in the meltwater zones to the rare Darwin's frog that depends on the specific humidity levels.
Well, that certainly adds another layer of urgency to experiencing these places while we can.
You know what's really fascinating? The park rangers there have started this citizen science program where visitors can contribute to glacier monitoring. They use something called photo point documentation, basically taking precisely positioned photos that, when compared over time, help track the glacier's changes.
That's such a creative way to engage visitors in conservation efforts. What's the best time of year to visit?
The local tourism board suggests October to April. But here's the catch. They've recorded that December and January now see about 40% more rainfall than they did just 20 years ago. And get this, the trail actually closes completely during severe weather, which happens about 75 days per year.
Sounds like you really need to be flexible with your plans. What else should people know before making the journey?
Well, beyond the practical stuff like waterproof gear, there's this interesting psychological aspect. Park surveys show that visitors who spend at least 30 minutes at the viewpoint report a significantly more meaningful experience than those who just snap a quick photo and leave. It's what environmental psychologists call nature connection time.
That makes so much sense. You can't really rush an experience like this.
And that's exactly what makes these places so valuable in our hyperspeed world. Researchers studying the effects of awe-inspiring natural places on mental health have found that experiences like this can actually alter our perception of time, making us more present and mindful.
What a powerful reminder of why we need to preserve these natural wonders.
Absolutely right. And here's something to think about. While we often focus on the spectacular views, it's really the journey itself. That wobbly bridge, the muddy trail, the cold glacier wind on your face, that creates the transformative experience. As one local guide puts it, the glacier doesn't just show us nature's power, it shows us our place within it.